Table service meals are proof that Disney is more than theme park food. Both of us love to eat on our Disney vacations, and in this video, we're talking about our favorite table service dining.
Welcome to Always Planning Disney, where planning is half the fun. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Cheryl.
And on this channel, we talk through all of the details that go into making our vacations magical.
I have to say before we get into specific dining locations that I'm really excited for this episode because I haven't had opportunity to do a whole lot of table service dining, and I know you have, so I'm really excited to learn from all of your experiences, maybe whittle down my want to do list for our next trip, because right now it's basically all of the restaurants ever. So if you could help me with that today, I'd really appreciate that, Melissa.
Yeah, my future list is the same. There are lots of options on there. And because you get to book your advanced dining so far ahead of time, we always use that as the anchor of the rest of our trip. And unlike other things at Disney, where you could ride many rides in a single day, you can only eat so much food. So choosing where we're eating is such a big part of planning. And I'm excited to look back on it and figure out where we might go again and what we're going to skip.
All right, so should we take this sort of park by park?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like you have Hollywood Studios first.
I do have Hollywood Studios first, and part of that is because, as we talked about in past episodes, that's where we tend to go first. So at Hollywood Studios on our last trip, we ate at 50's Prime Time Café, like we have many other times. It is a must-do for us every trip. We love the theming. We talked about this during the review of Pop Century. We like 50's sort of campy look and feel. We like walking up a bowling pin, and we like eating in a house that is apparently our aunt's straight out of the 50's. So 50's Primetime Cafe gives us all of this. We love the look of all that mid-century kitsch. We love that there's server interactions at this restaurant. The servers are in character. They will sort of reprimand you if you are not using your best table manners. If you don't clean your plate, they'll come around and help you finish it. Ray once had a server feed him vegetables off of his fork. We like that. You can, of course, ask them to tone it down or not do that, but we like it when our servers are a little bit sassy and have some attitude.
So this is one I have been to, but not for a long time. We went to when I was in maybe middle school, and it was still that same experience where it's like your cousin serving you. And it was hilarious to me at the time because I wasn't the one in our party being picked on. So my cousin was, for some reason, called Sparky the entire meal. I'm not sure how he got that nickname. He got ripped on the entire meal. He must have just looked like the kind of guy to pick on. So I think they put his hat way up high because he didn't want to take it off for the meal. It was super funny. I don't know if I'm as comfortable with that now as a very introverted adult, but it was really funny to me then.
And we have asked them to avoid interacting with my daughter because she is not into that at all. A little shy. It's just not what she would like, but the rest of us are okay with it. So we have just excluded a single member of the party, and it has gone fine. One time when we went, we had a server who actually, instead of playing the role of the cousin, was just a sassy diner waitress instead. And that was awesome. She acted like she was completely over the job, frustrated, flung the plates at us. Here's Jack. So we love everything about 50's Primetime Cafe, the theming, the interactions with the servers, and we like the food too. It's comfort food with a really wide appeal. It's always consistently very good to high quality even. There's chicken pot pies, fried chicken, pot roast, meatloaf. It's stuff that everybody likes. Now, in the future, I'm sure we will continue to eat here because we always have and enjoy it so much, but I've mentioned it before. I could go to just the lounge area and be fine. I'd get to see the setting, I'd get the look and feel, and it would free up some of our dining time if we want to eat at Galaxy's Edge because we haven't done that yet.
Totally fair. I can understand that. And I'd be really curious what the interactions are like in the lounge and if they're maybe different from being seated at a regular table. So you'll have to report back if you ever wind up doing that. So neither of us had any for Animal Kingdom this time, which is a shame because that's definitely on my list for the future. So if folks have recommendations for us for great table service dining in the Animal Kingdom, I'd love some help narrowing that down as well. So chime in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Jumping to the Magic Kingdom next. So one that we did do last trip was Skipper Canteen. That was a new restaurant at the time that we had gone, and it was one of our must-do restaurants. We were so excited to go there. We were able to be seated in the C room, so the Society of Explorers and Adventurers sort of secret-y room. We had heard that the theming was really, really cool back there. We felt like, yeah, it was cool. It was maybe a little bit overhyped because it was still a very like restaurant kind of feel with some areas that had some interesting displays. So still exciting to sit in there, still very, very fun. And it was excellent food. It was probably the best food that we had on our last trip. We absolutely loved it. And there were a lot of different menu options, so I wouldn't worry too much about bringing picky eaters here. I think that's why in the past this has been an easier dining reservation to get, because it feels like maybe a little different kind of food, and some of the menu options certainly are, but there were plenty of options for everyone on this menu. So we were very happy with it. It was so, so good. We found that, so the concept of this restaurant is that the skippers are serving you. It's like you're coming into their dining room essentially. And so you're supposed to get that same sort of like punny humor going on with your server that you would on the Jungle Cruise. We found that our particular server was not like a very skipper kind of server. We didn't get a ton of puns from her, but she was so knowledgeable, excellent service, and we would rather have that than the humor. So it was fine with us. But I mean, you're going to get a variety of experiences there, I think, depending on who your server is, who your cast member is. We'll definitely go back to this one. We really loved it. We're going to try to fit it into our next trip, even though we have a whole bunch of restaurants we haven't tried yet and want to.
So Skipper Canteen is top of my list of where we want to try next at Magic Kingdom. So I'm excited to hear this. And I did not know that the servers were supposed to be skippers, which sells it even more for me because I love Jungle Cruise. Every time you go on it, it's slightly different based on who you get as your skipper. So I think this just scored a couple extra points for Skipper Canteen for me. At Magic Kingdom, we don't do too much table service because I think the choices there are less exciting than some other places, but they've definitely upped it recently with Skipper Canteen, Be Our Guest, which is a character meal, and not the most recent trip, just the one before, we went to Liberty Tree Tavern. And so this was before they started doing the family style meal. However, the theming here is flawless. It's just like stepping back into times of the American Revolution. And it was a welcome theming because at that time my daughter was at the height of her Hamilton fandom, and so she really enjoyed it here. And when they call you to your table, they refer to either your colony or your territory. So we were, the party from the territory of Michigan, because at that time Michigan was not a state. But that is sort of the end of the themed interaction, aside from what the servers are wearing. So it's not so much an experience. The food on the old menu was also high quality. We were very surprised at how good it was. And I have heard the same for the new family style meal that they're offering now. However, I'm 50-50 on if we're going to try this again with the family style menu. Mm-hmm. Family style meals, we love it because there's lots of options for everybody. And if something really, really likes one part of that, you can get as much as you want, which is important when you have kids who may decide they're only eating, mashed potatoes for that entire meal. However, it is a Thanksgiving dinner, and you have to be in the mood for a Thanksgiving dinner. Yes. And especially if it's like hot that day, I don't know if I'm sitting down to like turkey and gravy if it's going to be in the upper 80s. So Liberty Tree, we really enjoyed it. Not sure if we're going to go back though.
That's kind of a great segue over to Epcot and a restaurant that we went to the trip before last. We went to the Biergarten in Germany, and it was the same situation where there's so much very heavy food that I don't know if I would want to do that every trip, because it's a lot in the Florida heat. And I think it's something that works better during a time of year when you're not going to have the extreme heat that you do in the Florida summer. So it worked out right for us in a January trip. I don't know if I would do it in a summer trip. So the Biergarten is really all about the experience. There's a live polka band. It's designed so that it looks like you are outside, even though you are inside. And my husband said it's some sort of Disney magic because it looks like it's going to be a lot smaller restaurant from the outside. And then you get in and it's so big and you feel like you're outdoors. So that's a really cool experience, just to like walk into this place that looks like you're in a little town. They also, at least in pre-COVID times, they had these long bench tables where you would sit with other guests. So you wouldn't just be with your party, you would be with some strangers as well. They kind of packed everybody in. And we found that to be really fun. I was sort of nervous about sitting with other people because what if they're awful? But it was really fun. And we actually enjoyed chatting with a couple that was sitting across from us. And that was where we first started thinking about the dining plan, because we had never had it before. And they said, oh yeah, we're here because we were using some dining plan credits. And we thought, maybe we'll look into that for our next trip. And sure enough, we did. So great food. I'm not positive that I got my money's worth in food because I'm more of a light eater, whereas my husband he's worked in restaurants before, so he'll go for the most expensive stuff in a buffet to make sure he's getting his money's worth. But I felt like I was paying just as much for the experience as for the food, so I didn't feel shortchanged or anything like that because I'm not as big of an eater as he is. I do think it's important to know with this restaurant that the beer costs extra on top of your flat rate buffet or, family style right now cost. So that's something to figure into your budget for going to this restaurant. Again, we felt like it was worth it because what's the Biergarten for someone of age if you aren't having a beer with your dinner, right? So we would love to go back to this one someday, but there are so many other restaurants that we want to try in Epcot that I think we're going to kind of make a loop through the World Showcase before we get back to this one.
And that's the thing with Epcot. I have eaten at Epcot a lot, but until I started thinking about this episode, I realized we do a lot of quick service at Epcot, and we do a lot of festival stalls because you're able to try so many different things. And on our last trip, in February of 2020, we actually missed our lunch reservation for a table service meal in Epcot because I wasn't feeling well that day and I just took the morning to rest while the kids are at the pool. So I don't have a recent Epcot review. However, in the past, we did go to Coral Reef, which always tops everybody's lists of one of the riskiest places to eat because it can be so inconsistent. However, we chose it for theme alone. At the time we went, my daughter Maddie was very into ocean life, and being able to eat next to an aquarium that large is something that we wouldn't be able to do back home, so we had to go there. The menu is a very standard steak, seafood, traditional high-end American food. I had a delightful salmon dish, and everybody else was very pleased with their food as well. So when we went there, it was a good experience. We got lucky, things were plated well, and they tasted good. Our server was amazing, and because my daughter was in costume, he treated her like a princess and was so excited to get to meet a princess that day and gave her a free smoothie in a big fancy cup that was lighting up. It was wonderful. My family asks about going back all the time, but it's a one and done for me because I think the risk is so high. And like you said, there's so many other places to try at Epcot. So we had a good time. It can happen, but it still is a risk. So I think we're going to avoid it.
That's one that I'm considering for our next trip. It's sort of between Coral Reef and then T-Rex in Disney Springs in terms of not a character dining experience, but something that would be themed for our son in particular, something that he would really love. So he enjoys dinosaurs, he enjoys sea life. I have to say, if we wind up booking Coral Reef, I will not be including myself in that reservation because I cannot handle being next to a giant fish tank. When we pop out, I have to kind of brace myself through Nemo and Friends. and then I book it out of the seas because I don't like being around really big aquariums. So that
Really?
would be a good, yes, really, it freaks me out. I don't like it at all. So I think I would book that for the rest of my party, and I would enjoy a little mommy time, maybe have myself a drink and do some shopping.
That would be wise because it is a really big aquarium. And sometimes there's scuba divers in there when you're eating. I mean, it's gigantic. So
Yeah, that's not for me, but my boys would absolutely love it. So I think we'll have to decide which one he would enjoy more, because he's seen reviews of T-Rex and he was excited about that as well. I'm worried that it might be a little too loud in there for him. So if anyone has perspective on that I'm gonna have a 5-year-old on my next trip, I'd love to hear that in the comments as well, because I'm nervous about booking that one.
yeah. And we look for similar things when we're picking places, which is really the experience. I like it if we can get a table service meal that obviously everything's going to be delightfully themed and beautiful, but we really like the ones that give you a little bit of an experience on top of that, which I think is why we like 50's Prime Time Café so much, because the servers are interacting with you.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the reasons why we love Ohana, which is another must do for us over at the Polynesian. We have gone here for every single trip in the last 6 years. Ohana is always on our list. And first of all, it gets you into the Polynesian. So you get to look around and smell the lobby. I recommend showing up early to get a drink from Tambu Lounge, which shares a waiting area more or less with Ohana, but you can get a drink, you can sit there, wait for your table. There are not characters at dinner, only at breakfast, and we have only gone for the dinner, which is an all-you-care-to-eat family-style meal. Like I said before, we love this type of meal because you can get as much of what you like throughout the whole meal. Great for kids who are only going to want to eat a couple things. The food is broadly Pacific Island style, with mostly an American spin. So there's lots of Asian spice profiles with sweetness, lots of pineapple flavor throughout the meal, some heat. The noodles are probably a reason why we return as often as we do. I think my kids eat 80% noodles for their dinner at Ohana, and I might too. But I'm so glad that the noodles made it through the Ohana reopening, because that fried rice scare, it really had me for a moment. And Disney listened to the people and we got our noodles back. So the food comes out in a couple of waves, and it's very easy to fill up on the first wave. But if you hold out to the end, that's when they bring the giant skewers with meat. That format is changing post-COVID, but the food is always high quality and above. I love Ohana. And it is an experience. Every time we've gone there, in addition to the lovely theming and wonderful food, there's something going on. There might be a person walking around playing a ukulele and singing. We've been there when they had games with coconuts, like bowling and hitting them with a broom as like a race across the floor. We've had luau lessons. So it's something in addition to just being a great meal. And that's why it is a must do for us every time. We will always go there. There will always be a stop at Ohana.
We need to get there. I really think we need to get there next trip, probably on one of our rest days, because yeah, I've been dying to go there. I would like to go when it's not character dining because I'm not big on Stitch. So yeah, we need to get there next trip.
And I think that the breakfast is less unique as compared to the dinner. And I didn't even mention the dessert, which of course is great as well. I think it's changed a little bit, but I don't even know what the flavors are in that. There's like banana, coconut, caramel. It's like all of this in a delightful cake with like an ice cream and a sauce you pour on top. It is, yeah, Ohana is just a wonderful place to be. We like to pair it with a Magic Kingdom day, because it's just a boat ride away. And so we'll take the boat from Magic Kingdom over to Polynesian.
Oh, that's a great plan. Okay. Do you see the gears turning? I'm planning my next trip. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let us know in the comments what your favorite table service restaurants are. And remember to like and subscribe to plan along with us.